Okay, drafting a ground plan. First thing you need to do is assemble your materials. You need 4 pieces of paper, a pencil, either a mechanical or a regular pencil. If you have a regular pencil, remember you're going to need a pencil sharpener so that you keep the point of your pencil nice and sharp. We're going to need some tape, either regular tape or masking tape or packing tape. Really, any type of tape you have will be fine. You need a ruler. 18-inch ruler or 12-inch ruler, you got to have one of those. And a yardstick is helpful. I'll show you where you'll use that if you have one. But it's not necessary. You can do this whole activity with a 12-inch ruler. Now, most of you don't have what's called large format paper at home. So we need to make a piece. You take your 4 pieces of regular paper. This is just 8.5 by 11 printer paper. And I'm just taping them together long ways. And then I'll do the same thing with the other 2. Line it up nice and straight on your top and bottom edges. And you don't need a huge piece of tape, just enough to hold them together. Once you have your 2 sets, line them up again, and now we're going to tape them together and make a larger piece. I find it easier if you start from one edge and work across the paper. Here in the center, where these 4 pieces are coming together, I'm going to put a larger piece diagonally, and then one right here on this end. Now, it is best, before we go on, if you tape these 2 long seams. Now, as I said, you can do that with either regular Scotch tape. So I'm going to pull off a larger piece and just smooth this down, trying to keep it from getting any wrinkles in it, because the wrinkles will show up as you draw your lines over. Now, if you've got masking tape, this is blue painter's tape. It works the same as masking. So I'm just going to lay this over the seam. Now, once you've got those done, go ahead and flip this over. And you've got your couple of pieces that are just sticking out with the tape. You can use a pair of scissors, which I forgot to grab when I was started. So I'm just going to use my X-Acto knife. Remember, when you're using the X-Acto knife, put something down on top of your tabletop so that you don't cut into the kitchen table or the wooden table where you're working. Okay. So get rid of that. Okay. So here's my large piece of paper. Remember, this is going to represent our stage. So this part of the paper that's down here, that's downstage. That's closest to our audience. Our audience is out here, not actually on the table. This part back here is our upstage. It's furthest away from the audience. And then the sides of our stage are here on either side. First thing we need to do is draw the back wall of our theater. Now, we're going to model this mostly after our theater. We're going to take a few liberties as we are taking some of the measurements. So, I'm going to come up here. I've put my ruler at 0 on the edge of the paper, and I'm going to measure down 1 inch. and I'm going to make a tiny little dot. I don't want to make a huge dot. I'm not bubbling in a test. I want this dot to disappear when I draw a line through it. Okay, so I have my two dots. If I measured accurately, this line that I'm about to draw will be parallel with the edge of the paper. This is where your long yardstick comes in handy. So I need to move my ruler out of the way so that I have room to use my yardstick. Now, since we put together our own paper, we have a center line. We're going to have to mark it a little bit later, but we're going to use that to our advantage. So I line up my ruler so it's just below those two dots. The back wall of my theater is 36 feet long. Now in scale, we're going to use a ½ inch to equal a foot. So for each ½ inch, that's going to be a foot in real life. So that's a foot on my paper. So 36 divided by 2 gives us 18. So I need to draw a line that is 18 inches long. Now I want to go ahead and center that on my paper. So I've put the number 9 on my yardstick right there where my papers all are taped together. Check your dots, make sure you're lined up, and then with your non-dominant hand, press that down, because as you're drawing, that force will be enough to make your ruler move. So, here's the back wall of my theater. Okay. Now, put that aside for a minute and grab my smaller ruler, because it's just simpler. I need to draw the sides of my theater, coming down on both sides. I can use this as one of my points so I don't have to remeasure. But so that I keep my line absolutely straight, I need to know what is the distance from the end of this line to the edge of the paper. So, line up my ruler with the end of my line, and it's at 2, and 0 is over here at the edge. So, I'm going to come down here, line up my 0 with the edge of the paper, and make my mark at 2. And then again, line up my dots. I want to put 0 at the top there, lined up with the back wall of the theater. My stage is 22 feet long, or deep. Half of 22 is 11. So I need a line that is 11 inches. So I just draw my line down here to 11. Now, before I lift this off, remember our stage has an apron that is 4 feet. So that means I need to add another 2 inches and actually draw my line down to 13. I'm going to make a little mark here at 11 because that's going to save me some time when I go back in to draw where the curtain is. I come over here to the other side of my paper and I repeat. Line up my 0 with the edge of the paper and I measure in 2 inches. Make my little dot. There we go. And again, line up the top of that ruler with the back wall of your theater. And then locate your dot again. So, my 22-foot deep theater plus 4 feet for my apron would be a total of 26 feet. In scale, that's a 13-inch line. And again, I'm going to save myself some work and make a little dot there at 11 because I'm going to come back to that. Okay, put that ruler aside for a moment. I need to draw the front of my stage where my stage actually ends, where the apron ends. Since I measured accurately from my back wall, I don't actually have to do any measurements here. I just need to line up my ruler and see, my yardstick fits that exactly. If you don't have a yardstick, you can do this with your 18-inch ruler, because an 18-inch ruler is actually a little bit longer than that. Most metal rulers don't start at 0. They give you a little bit of room at each end. So, here's the start of my theater. My back wall, my side wall, my other side wall, the front of the stage, out in the house at the edge of the apron. Okay, my proscenium. Now that grand opening that has the drape in it that keeps, where we do all our work back here. Now my pencil point has gotten a little dull, so I sharpen. Now, as I said, you can do this with a regular pencil, but if you have a mechanical one, it saves you a step. So it's up to you. Reach in your book bag if you know you've got a mechanical pencil. Pull one out. I line up my dots. And I press down. Keep my ruler in one place. Okay. This line that I've just drawn is the back of the proscenium. It's also called the curtain line because this is where our curtain hangs, our main drape. Okay. We know that we have a proscenium, that arch that frames the stage. We need to draw that in. Now the arch is on the downstage side toward the audience. The block that makes up our building is a foot thick. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to lay some number on my curtain line, and I'm going to measure a 1/2 inch down. And I make a little dot. I come over here to this other side, and I do the same thing. Okay, I've got my 2 dots. Now, spoiler, this is where you want to slow down. You've gotten really used to drawing all these big lines all the way across your paper. The proscenium arch doesn't go all the way across the paper. It's a little column on both sides of the stage, and that is 3 inches. So I start at 0, or in this case 8. That's 1 foot, that's 2 foot, that's 3 feet. So I'm going to stop. I come over here to the other side. I'm going to draw something that is 3 feet in scale. So there's 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, and I stop. Now, I can pretty much, so this is the front edge of my proscenium. This is what the audience sees. Now I take my smaller ruler because it's simpler. You could do this with the large ruler. And I just line it up and make a nice straight line. And that's one side of my proscenium. I come over here and I do the same. So there's my proscenium. Now, our theater in real life has much bigger wing space than what we're showing on the paper, but the set for heads is a single set, so I don't need to worry about the wing space. I don't have another set I have to store. Okay, before I can start working really hard, I need to put in a center line. Now, if you have a large piece of paper, you have one piece, then we need to take some measurements. If you tape together your paper, you kind of already have the center line, but measure your total distance of your paper. It's 22 inches. Half of 22 is 11. Make a dot here at 11. Come up to the top, do the same thing. Make sure that your ruler is lined up with the edge of the paper, and I make a dot. Line up your ruler with the edge with your dots. Now remember, center line is an invisible line. It's what we call imaginary. It's important because it gives us a location, but you don't ever see it on the stage. You're not going to walk in to see a production and see the center line painted on the finished set. So I want to draw this a little bit lighter, and it's a dashed line. So it's a long dash, skip a space, and a short dash. Long dash, skip, short, skip, long dash, skip, short dash, skip, long dash, skip, short dash, long dash, skip, short dash, and then a long dash. So there's my center line. Remember, we know it's a center line because at the bottom, we're going to label it either center line, all spelled out, or the convention is CL. You guys know, anytime that I can use an abbreviation, I'll use it because I don't have to worry about my spelling. Okay, so here's the back wall of my theater. Over in this corner, if we were at Fuqua, would be our big double doors that lead from the shop. And over here is a single door that leads from the hallway. Down here, in this wall on the proscenium, we have our Shakespeare door over here. And this wall is solid. And here's our apron, our area in front of the stage, in front of the main curtain. Our curtain is going to travel right here. Okay, now, inside our theater, we need to be able to get technicians from this side of the stage to this side without the audience seeing them. This is called a crossover. We have a huge crossover on our stage. We're going to draw it a little smaller on our model, on our drawing. The crossover is separated from the main stage by that big curtain called a cyclorama, or cyc. We have two cycs. We have a black cyc and we have a white cyc. And then we have a velvet black curtain. So we've got a lot of curtain wear up there. Humans need about 3 feet to move comfortably next to a wall. So on our drawing, we're going to allot 3 feet. So remember, 3 feet on scale would be 1.5 inches. So I'm just going to measure down 1.5 inches and make a dot. Come over to the other side of the stage, because remember, I need 2 points to make my straight line. Measure down 1.5 inches or 3 feet and make a dot. Okay. Now, line up your ruler. Our curtain our sights are hung 3 feet from the edge of the wall. So, again, I count over 1, 2, 3. So I start here and I just draw a straight line all the way across. It's okay to stop, to reposition your hands so that your ruler doesn't move. Okay, this is my cyclorama or my backdrop. This gives me my crossover so the actors can get from one side of the stage to the other. Yeah, I know there are doors back here, but those doors, even in the best theaters, are never silent when you open and close them. So we do everything we can to keep the actors from using the actual doors. Now, you notice, as I've done some stuff, I've smudged some lines. That's why you have an eraser. Get rid of those marks. You want to try to keep your paper as clean and bright as possible. Put my little eraser cap back on. Okay. Curtain line down here in the front. Cyclorama back here. Now it's time to start putting on the set walls. We know from your rough ground plan and from the rough ground plan drawing I did in class on the whiteboard that the best place to put our door is on the center of the back wall. Because remember, somebody's grandmother sitting way out here in that far end seat. You know, if I put the door here and she's sitting here, she won't be able to see it. So I want to keep it where the sight lines say everybody in the theater can see it. Okay. Now, why is that door important? Well, we know that Rose has to come through that door. Remember, we needed 3 feet here for the actors to travel from one side of the stage to the other. We need 3 feet between our cyclorama and the back wall of our set so that the actor can travel and get in place and actually use the door. So, I line up my ruler with my 0 on the side, and again, I count down 3 feet. 1, 2, 3. That's 1.5 inches. I make my little mark. I come over here because I need 2 points to use on my straight edge to get that line. 1, 2, 3 feet. So there are my 2 points. Okay. How long should my back wall be? Well, we know that our proscenium opening is 30 feet wide. See? And in scale, that's 15 inches. If we do our back wall at 30 feet, got another ruler here. That means that this side wall would be straight. Okay, so my people sitting out here, until I get to about here, couldn't see what this wall looks like. So that's why we put the sidewalls in at an angle. Now, much more of my audience can see this wall. That's why they're slanted. The audience uses what's called willing suspension of disbelief. They're going to go, okay, that's a real room, even though the corners of the room are not 90 degrees. We've made it a little bit wider than 90. The audience will buy that and go along with us. So, we know that we don't want this back wall to be 30 feet. Half of 30 is 15. Half of 15 would be 7.5. This would give me a 30-foot wall. We don't want that. Um, 24, and this is one of those things where you just have to trust me. 24 is the distance you want your back wall to be. So, 24 in half-inch scale would be 12. Half of 12 is 6. So I've lined up my 6 on my center line. And then I check to make sure that my ruler is still on 6, but also touching my 2 points. And I draw my line from 0 up to 12. Now, if you decide that you only want your back wall to be 20 feet, that's fine. Now, you would simply do that with putting 20, 0 to 10. 10 times 2 is 20. Half of 10 is 5. You can draw it there. I really wouldn't go any smaller than 20 feet on your back wall. I wouldn't go any bigger than 26 feet. 24 is right there in the middle, and that's going to be a good size for us. So I've drawn mine at 24. You get to make that choice. Now I need my side walls. Couple of things to remember. Down here at my curtain line, I've got that big, thick blue curtain, because that's the color of our curtain in the auditorium. When we open that curtain, it takes about a foot of space. You know, when I open this curtain, if I don't have all my books stuck in the way of the window, you know, I'm now taking up more space than when it's laying flat. So we need to account for that. We need to not have the curtain hit the set when it opens. So I want to give that about a foot. I also want to make sure that my wall goes past my proscenium arch. I don't want somebody's little brother sitting out here looking in between to see what they can see backstage. I want the audience's focus on the actors, not distracting by somebody thinking they're seeing something they shouldn't. Okay. Now, if you look here, I've got a half-inch mark on my proscenium. So that's a foot on that angle. It's not a foot up and down. And I need a foot perpendicular. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to turn it straight for a moment and measure up 1 foot. Make a little dot. This is where I want my set wall to end. Okay. Check my angle. I need to actually put it on this side because I'm right-handed. If I leave it here, I'm going to be trying to hold this with one hand and draw with the other. It's going to be a mess. But if I move my ruler to this side, I can hold on to it and draw my straight line. And I stop right there when I get to that dot. Okay. I come over here. I do the same thing. Now I'm going to sort of eyeball this. I'm going to look at that and go, okay, not quite a half-inch over. I need to get my 1 foot back. I don't want to eyeball that. So it's sitting on 16. I measure up a half-inch. In scale, that's a foot. And then I just move my ruler, hold it tight with my non-dominant hand, and draw my line. Okay, so this is where I need you to be for Monday. I need you to draw in your theater building, your curtain line, your proscenium arch. We have an apron. Put in your center line. Put in your cyclorama or psych. Remember, 2 words, think of them as name and nickname. And then the walls of your set. Now, as you remember from class the other day, a 3-sided set is called a box set because we have this imaginary 4th wall. It's invisible. The audience can see through it. The actors think there's a wall there. They don't pay any attention to the audience. Now, the characters don't realize that there's an audience. The actors know, but the characters don't. Now, Rose doesn't know that 1,000 people are watching her story. So this is what you need to have for Monday. Okay, so work on this today and tomorrow. I will send out a remind so that there is some open time on Sunday. If you're having problems, you can shoot me a remind and we will talk through it. You really, for this to be effective, for me to help you, you're going to need to turn on your cameras and show me your drawing so that I can look at what you're doing and say, oh, here's how you make that right. It is never a mistake until you don't fix it. Remember what I've said a lot in this class. You're going to do stuff you've never done before. You're going to make errors. So we correct them. It's not a mistake until you won't fix it. Have a good weekend. I'll see you in class on Monday.